Inspiring courtroom turnaround, after cops assaulted her, one woman's amazing journey revealed. Lila Dawson stood at the center of chaos, her heart racing against the pounding drums of protest. The vibrant colors of banners and the rhythmic chanting of her community filled the air, their voices blending into a powerful chorus demanding change in Willow Creek. But in an instant, everything transformed. A flash of blue uniforms surged forward, and Lila felt the world tilt. A shove. Then another. The gasps and screams of her neighbors echoed around her as she collapsed to the pavement, the rough asphalt biting into her skin. Was this truly the price of seeking justice? Heartache hung heavy in the aftermath of that fateful day. A single mother, Lila had fought for every moment of peace and opportunity. Her daughter, Ava, was all she had, a wide-eyed girl with hopes as big as the sky. Lila recalled her own mother's lessons. Resilience was a family legacy, steeped in sweat and sacrifice. She had promised to make life better for Ava, yet now she found herself thrust into a role she never asked for, a reluctant symbol of social injustice. "It's not fair," Lila whispered to Ava, wrapping her arms around her daughter one evening as they snuggled on their worn couch. Ava's small finger traced the rounded edges of Lila's calloused hands. "You're not alone, Mom. We'll make it right together." And though Lila smiled, a knot tightened in her stomach. People were angry not just with the police, but with her. Friends blurred into shadows, the very fabric of her community unraveling. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As night closed in, the courtroom stood stark and unforgiving. It buzzed with tension, the air thick with whispered judgments and pained gazes. Family members who had distanced themselves trickled in, their faces etched with confusion and unspoken hurt. The walls seemed to hum with memories, old disputes, buried ties. It was in this whirlwind of heartache that forgiveness hovered just within reach. When her moment arrived, Lila stood tall, her voice steady yet heavy with the weight of countless stories. Each word ignited a fire in her heart, transforming fine patience into rage. She spoke not just for herself, but for the other souls bruised by injustice, blurring her experience into the struggle of every single person in that room. They were weary fighters, barricaded by walls unseen, but suddenly, a twist: new evidence emerged, shaking the ground beneath her. It could expose deep-rooted corruption, the tangled betrayals gnawing away at her trust. Fear coiled in her stomach as clamoring thoughts wrestled within her. Would this lead her to vindication, or push her further away from the very people she fought to support? With the verdict looming, Lila gazed around the courtroom, assaulting her senses. 100 eyes scrutinized her, each pair heavy with hope and doubt. Could her stand for justice be the spark to forge unity, or would it splinter the community even more? Her heart weighed heavy with the enormity of her decision. It was a crossroads she never saw coming, and the answer danced on the edge of despair. Lila stood before the judge, a storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. As she considered the evidence, the weight of the moment pressed down on her like a physical force. Would revealing this truth strengthen her community, or would it tear them apart even more? The flicker of hope battling despair mirrored the emotions in the gallery. Friends and family exchanged anxious glances, their aspirations woven tightly into the fabric of her bravery. Time felt suspended as the judge began reading the charges. Words hung in the air like clouds threatening a thunderstorm. Each phrase resonated deeply, igniting her vulnerability. She bit her lip, her heart pounding as she glanced at Ava in the front row, her small figure dwarfed by the expanse of the courtroom. Lila's chest tightened with a fierce protectiveness. Was she really doing the right thing for her daughter? Her voice cracked slightly as she took a deep breath, steadying herself. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by rustling at the back of the room. A tall figure stepped forward. Jack, a childhood friend. Lila's heart leaped momentarily before settling into a pit of concern. Jack was a cop. A good cop, everyone said. But lines had blurred in Willow Creek, and she could feel the tension in the air. He had been supportive, but what would this moment mean for their friendship? For the town? Lila, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, I know why you're doing this. But you need to be careful. His eyes, usually filled with warmth, held shadows now, an unsettling mix of loyalty and apprehension. This was not the world they had grown up in, the innocence of youth was swallowed by this dark reality. Careful. Lila felt the heat of anger flare in her belly. This isn't just about me anymore, Jack. It's about everyone. It's about Ava. The anger she kept bottled threatened to spill over, a force of nature surging to the surface. She couldn't back down, not now. Jack ran a hand through his hair, visibly torn. I know and I'm with you. But think about the fallout. His gaze shifted to the bench where others watched with bated breaths, hoping for change yet fearing the repercussions. As the judge adjourned the proceedings for a short break, the courtroom exhaled collectively. It seemed more a waiting room than a place of justice, filled with anticipation trembling like a string pulled taut. Lila felt out of control, her emotions swirling, fueling her resolve but also filling her with dread. Who would she hurt if she pressed on with the evidence? As if sensing her turmoil, Ava's small hand gripped Lila's tightly. Mom, you're the strongest person I know. We can handle this together. The innocent faith in her daughter's voice sent a wave of warmth washing over her. In that moment, Lila gathered her strength. But the tension remained a delicate balance of hope and uncertainty. With the courtroom reconvening, Lila cast one last glance at Jack. There was a flicker of understanding between them, a silent acknowledgement of their diverging paths. This wasn't about loyalty to each other anymore, it was about loyalty to truth. As she prepared to make her stand, Lila's heart beat wildly in her chest. What awaited her on the other side? Would she be embraced or cast aside? Lila squared her shoulders, ready to face the unknown, but as she opened her mouth to speak, the door opened with a crash, and an unexpected figure stepped inside. Silence fell, the atmosphere shifting dramatically. What had just walked through the door? The courtroom door swung wide, revealing a familiar face that triggered a mix of disbelief and fear in Lila's heart. It was Mr. Thompson, the town's former mayor, disheveled and worn, his eyes wide with a restless energy. Whispers rippled through the gallery, a low hum of confusion. Wasn't he supposed to be out of town? What was he doing here? Lila. He called, his voice breaking the tense silence like a rock skipping across a still pond. His panicked gaze darted around the room and landed on her, accusation wrapped tightly around his words. You can't go through with this. You don't know what you're doing. Lila's pulse raced, her already fragile composure under renewed threat. What do you mean? She shot back, her voice stronger than she felt. This is about truth, about standing for what's right. He stepped closer, his tone shifting, growing more urgent. You think you're standing for the truth? You're standing in the way of so many lives. The officers involved, they're not who you think they are. They might look out for this community, but they have their reasons, Lila. Their good hearts are in the right place. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder. Lila exchanged glances with Jack, confusion painted on his face. What was Mr. Thompson trying to say? He was once a respected leader, but now it felt like he was grasping for control, desperate to keep the shadows hidden. Ava tugged at Lila's arm, eyes wide with worry. Mom, is he right? No. Lila said, shaking her head fiercely. She felt a swell of protective instinct rising inside her. This is bigger than you, Mr. Thompson. It's bigger than any one of us. But the mayor wouldn't relent. It's not worth losing everything for a story, Lila. Please, just think about Ava. About the future you're building for her. Those words hit her hard, striking a chord of doubt she didn't want to face. She looked down at her daughter, whose small hand trembled in hers, a mirror of the anxiety swirling in Lila's chest. Ava was watching her, searching for her mom's strength, her steady resolve. Enough. The judge's voice rang out like a gavel striking the air. If there's anything else to say, it will be said within the confines of this courtroom. You can either take your seat or be escorted out. The gravity of it all crashed down again. Lila had fought so hard to arrive at this moment, yet doubt crept closer with each word spoken. What did she truly know? Was she prepared to drag her daughter into this turmoil? Mr. Thompson's expression softened, a flicker of sincerity illuminating his worn features. Lila, just remember the fallout. Change comes at a price. His voice lowered, almost pleading. She swallowed hard, grappling with the emotions roiling inside her. Was the price worth it? Did uncovering the truth mean destroying everything she loved? Behind her, she heard murmurs of the crowd, restless and anxious. They were watching her, waiting for her. Would they judge her choice? Finally, Lila took a breath and found her resolve building within. It's not just a story. It's a chance for healing. It's my responsibility to speak out. But just as she turned back to the judge, a loud commotion erupted at the back of the room. A voice shouted, cutting through the tension like a knife. Wait. I have something to say. All eyes turned, breathless, anticipating the next revelation. Who was this new player, and what would they reveal? Lila's heart raced again, pounding with hope and fear. This day was far from over, and she knew it. What would unfold next could change everything. A figure stepped into view, a young woman, her face flushed and determined. Lila's heart raced, she recognized her from the community. It was Jenna, the girl who had posted about her own encounter with the police force, an encounter that had sparked outrage. The kind of outrage Lila was hoping to ignite in this courtroom. I know what happened. Jenna blurted out, her voice rising above the whispers. I was there the night it all went down. I saw the way they treated her. The chaos in the courtroom spiraled as Jenna edged closer to the front, her hands fidgeting at her sides. Lila felt a surge of hope. If Jenna could offer more details, this could be the moment they needed. Hold on, the judge barked, trying to regain control. You cannot just come up here without being called, please. Jenna pleaded, cutting him off. This is crucial. You need to hear me. Her eyes briefly met Lila's, and in that instant, Lila could see the fire in her spirit. Jenna continued, her voice steadying. That night, I saw the officers be so rough with Jenny. It was awful. Lila's breath hitched. Jenny. The name hung heavy in the air, pulling everyone's attention toward a memory laden with pain. They remember the young woman, laughed at and ridiculed for speaking out against police brutality. The crowd's mood shifted, open to understanding but clouded with distrust. Please, share your story, Lila encouraged, her voice laced with urgency. Jenna took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts as the courtroom softened around her. They weren't just doing their jobs that night. They were angry. They treated her like she didn't matter, and it was horrifying. I stood there, frozen, too scared to say anything. But I shouldn't have stayed quiet. Lila felt her pulse race. This was the public acknowledgement they needed. The awareness that sometimes those meant to protect could turn against the very people they swore to serve. She could see Jack leaning forward, his brow furrowed, his attention caught, hopeful yet wary. I know people are scared, Jenna pressed on, but if we don't speak out, if we don't stand together, nothing will change. This is bigger than us one by one. It's about everyone. At the back of the gallery, a ripple of agreement surged. More whispers grew into support, and Lila felt the tide beginning to shift. Could they be on the cusp of something monumental? Jenna, Lila urged, can you tell us more about what you witnessed? About Jenny's experience? With each word Jenna shared, tension ebbed, replaced with purpose. The crowd began to lean in, each person whispering bits of solidarity. And then Lila's eyes caught Mr. Thompson's expression. It was as if the doubt he once clutched now showed cracks, a hint of uncertainty dancing across his features. Just as Jenna paused, Lila sensed the shift. The entire room still held its breath, each heart resonating with a hope that maybe just maybe they could start to change something. Lila stepped forward, emboldened. This is what matters. We must bring those truths into the light. But suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the courtroom. Lila's heartbeat quickened as she turned toward the noise. A tall figure emerged, shoving a door open, face shadowed with anger. It was one of the disgraced officers from the night in question. "You don't know what you're talking about," he yelled, eyes blazing with a fury that sent gasps through the crowd. Lila's stomach dropped. The confrontation they had feared was upon them. The stakes had just risen considerably. Would they stand firm against the tides of intimidation, or would it all crumble under pressure? As the officer advanced, Lila realized, the journey ahead had only just begun. Lila's breath caught in her throat as the officer stormed forward. The tension in the room thickened, stretching taut like a wire ready to snap. She felt the weight of everyone's eyes on her, each gaze filled with a mix of fear and anticipation. Jenna stood still, her shoulders squared, seemingly unfazed by the advancing figure. "Get out of here if you don't want to hear the truth." Jenna shot back, her voice shaking but unwavering. The room held its collective breath, waiting to see who would blink first. "Truth?" The officer scoffed, his voice dripping with venom. "You think just because you can shout here, you're telling the truth? You don't know what we face every day." Lila took a step closer, her heart pounding. "But you do know what happened that night. You're the ones who broke the law." Her words sliced through the air, and Lila felt an immediate rush. The room thrummed with a newfound energy, listeners leaning forward, solidarity bubbling in the undercurrent. "You read the reports," Jenna urged, her voice rising over the mounting tension. "You saw the footage. Jenny wasn't the one in the wrong. The evidence is there. It's a pattern." The officer faltered slightly, rage flickering behind his eyes. He was unprepared for their unity, for the way these individuals, once quieted by fear, were now standing as one. Lila could see the crowd around her, fists clenched, courage blooming amongst them. "Enough." The judge's voice boomed, finally cutting through the chaos. He looked at both the officer and Jenna, then at Lila. "You need to leave if you can't control yourselves." "I will not back down," Jenna declared, her face flushed but determined. "This isn't about one person. It's about the system that's failed us." The officer's demeanor shifted, frustration turning to confusion as he surveyed the crowd, a sea of sympathetic faces. Opposition coming from every angle. Lila could feel it, the shift was palpable. This was not the space where fear ruled anymore. They were reclaiming it, channeling rage into strength. "You think you can stand up against us?" He sneered, but his confidence waned as chatter broke out among the crowd. Support grew like wildfire, igniting whispers of "We want to be silent, and together, we are stronger." A woman in the back shouted, "Show us the footage. Let us see the truth." The words echoed, branching out like roots into the depths of the audience. Lila felt a swell of pride, these people were ready to fight for change. "Enough." The judge's gavel struck hard against the wood, a desperate plea for order. But today, the order was a fragile illusion. Lila shot a look at Jenna, an unspoken understanding between them. They couldn't let this moment slip away. As the officer turned, muttering curses under his breath, Lila's heart raced with an electrifying sense of purpose. She glanced around at the crowd, each face shrouded in determination. Together, they could confront this oppressive force head-on, but would they hold together against the storm? "Do it for Jenny," Lila called out, her voice ringing through the room. Shouts of agreement surged, "For Jenny." Pulsing like a heartbeat, with each person feeling the truth clawing toward the surface, but amid this solidarity, Lila could sense the crackle of danger. Would they be able to carry this momentum forward? As the officer retreated into the shadows, she understood they had only begun to scratch the surface. And in this fight for justice, every voice mattered, especially as new threats loomed on the horizon. Lila's determination deepened. The next steps were crucial. Would they transform fear into strength or risk it all to uncover the truth? The room buzzed with a charged energy. Lila felt it lift her spirits, though unease still coiled in the pit of her stomach. She glanced at Jenna, who stood resolute, framed against the backdrop of simmering tension. The gavel had fallen, but it hadn't silenced their voices. In fact, it only magnified them. She could feel the surge of allies rallying around a shared purpose, yet she knew their next move had to be calculated. "Lila, we can't just let this end here," Jenna said, her voice low but firm. She stepped closer, urgency lining her brow. "We need to record their denial. We need proof of their lies. If we can capture these moments, we can rally even more support." Lila nodded, adrenaline coursing through her. They had momentum now. This had the potential to be bigger than just the courtroom. But how to spread the word? Ideas raced in her mind, visions of social media networks and community gatherings, flickering like images on a screen. Flash mob? A social media campaign? Lila blurted, excitement creeping in despite the weight of reality. Exactly. But first, let South haggle with the court records. We need to make them feel our presence. Jenna winked, the challenge igniting a fire in her eyes. Lila couldn't help but smile. Jenna's belief in the cause was infectious. The crowd, now scattered yet still lingering, whispered among themselves, and Lila faced them. "What can we do together?" she called out. People looked at one another, a few stepping forward into the light, heads nodding with agreement. A man stepped out from the throng. "We can help you gather footage. We have friends in tech who can help." He was gruff, with a weathered face, but his enthusiasm rang bright. Lila recognized him from meetings. He had always been one to put his money where his mouth was. "Exactly," Jenna echoed, taking control of the growing energy. "We need to gather everyone who wants to fight this injustice and be prepared to show the world what the truth really is. We need to confront this system that keeps silent." Cheers erupted, voices chanting, "For Jenny." Once again. The chants rolled and spilled into the air, combining with the steady beat of many hearts beating as one. Fractured yet resilient, they were stronger together. Lila felt tears prick at her eyes, mixing emotions swirling within her heart. This community had been them, battling in the shadows, silenced for too long. But now, they were taking a stand. "Let us meet tomorrow. Let us plan. Bring your ideas, your friends, and your voices," she urged, her enthusiasm infectious. They committed to meet, exchanging contact information, their spirits buoyed by the belief in change. As the crowd began to disperse, Lila's heart was full, overflowing. But just as swiftly, doubt whispered beneath that joy. She caught a glimpse of the officer through the doorway, still casting a shadow, still looming. "Will they come for us?" Lila whispered to Jenna, her voice trembling slightly. "We'll stand together," Jenna replied fiercely. "They can't silence what they can't control." Lila absorbed that determination, but unease gnawed at her like a hungry wolf. What if they pushed back harder? As she left the courtroom, the world outside seemed more alive, yet more daunting. Each face they passed could either be an ally or someone loyal to the oppressive force. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. A message, a hint of hope, or a new threat. What lay ahead felt like walking on a tightrope suspended between fear and liberation. They had set the stage for a battle that could change everything. Would they be strong enough to face whatever came their way? With uncertainty weighing heavy but hope thrumming beneath, Lila was ready to find out. Lila's heart raced as she stood outside the courthouse, the cold air biting at her cheeks. The sun had begun to set, casting a golden hue over the gathering clouds. It was beautiful, yet the beauty felt distant, overshadowed by everything that had just unfolded. She glanced at Jenna, who was already scrolling through her phone, gathering the names and numbers from their new allies. "Do you think they'll actually show up?" Lila asked, trying to mask her doubt with a feigned casualness. Jenna looked up, her expression determined. "Absolutely. They want change as much as we do. This is our moment to rise up." The thought both thrilled and terrified Lila. She tried to inhale deeply, filling her lungs with the scent of impending rain and fresh hope. It was a strange mix, the smell of possibility, mingled with lingering fears. Just then, her phone buzzed again, a message from her sister, Sarah. "Are you okay? I saw the news." In an instant, Lila's stomach twisted. The news? The last thing she wanted was to bring her sister into this chaos, to drag her into the bitter reality they were fighting against. Quickly, Lila typed a response. "I'm fine, just busy. Let's chat later." "Busy? Right," Jenna chuckled, glancing at Lila's worried face. "You need to let people in, especially those who care. Don't carry this alone." Lila knew she was right. But the fear was there, gnawing still. How could she bring her family into this? Not to mention the legal threat that loomed. She could be putting everyone at risk. As they walked to Jenna's car, she felt a strange sense of kinship with the shadows creeping from the alleyways. They shared common ground, an unspoken bond of those who linger between justice and oppression. Jenna climbed into the driver's seat, and Lila took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling in. Their first meeting awaited. Flashes of their plan flickered in and out of her mind, rallying, filming, gathering testimonies, sharing their truth. Each mission pulsed with purpose, and yet an undercurrent of fear thrummed beneath it all. What if they didn't have enough evidence? What if they were silenced, or worse, when they spoke out? Lila's thoughts scattered as Jenna squeezed her arm. "We've got this. I have faith in us. It's time to shine a light on the dark corners. To stand up and be heard." Those words were like a lifeline. "Together, right?" Lila reaffirmed, feeling the solidarity wrap around her like a warm blanket. "Always," Jenna grinned, the engine purring to life, buzzing with their determination as they pulled away. Meanwhile, Lila's mind raced ahead, projecting images of tomorrow's meeting, the chaos, the introductions, the pitches for plans. Would they be strong enough to wield their voices as weapons? She wanted to believe in the power of unity, but doubt slinked in like a thief in the night. Arriving at the local community center, the building bustled with energy. People of all walks were filtering in, a mosaic of hope gathering under one roof. Lila looked around, her heart swelling yet again. This was it. As the night wore on, ideas flowed like water, bouncing between them in an electrifying rhythm of hope. Lila's spirit soared as she saw faces light up with new possibilities. She shared her vision of recording everything, gathering testimony after testimony. Their voices lifted in unison, filling the room with purpose, but just as they were about to break into groups to plan their next steps, the doors burst open. The air chilled instantly, and a strident voice called out, cutting through the gathering's excitement. "What is going on here?" Lila's heart sank. The familiar figure of Officer Lane stepped inside, flanked by two other officers. Their presence hung in the air, oppressive and daunting. "Your time of reckoning has come," he said, glaring at them with a fierce intensity. Fear rippled through the crowd, but Lila took a step forward, heart pounding yet resolved. Would they face the storm head-on or retreat? With a look that conveyed silent strength, she took a breath, ready to speak. But would her voice be loud enough to pierce the anxiety gripping them? Lila was about to find out. Lila's heart thudded in her chest as she faced Officer Lane, the tension in the room palpable. Whispers rippled through the crowd, a mix of uncertainty and fear. She could see familiar faces, some nodding toward her, others looking at the ground. They were scared. For them, this was more than just a gathering. This was their last chance to fight back. "Everyone, please," Lila said, her voice more steady than she felt. It felt surreal to speak under the watchful eyes of the officers. We're here to share our stories, to hold those in power accountable. We're not doing anything wrong. Officer Lane stepped closer, looming above her. You think you can just gather and speak our truth? Lila interrupted, surprised by her own boldness. You can't silence us for asking to be heard. In that moment, Lila felt a spark pass through her, igniting something deep within the group. It was as if her words lifted a weight off everyone else's shoulders. Some of her allies showed determination now, shoulders straightening, heads lifting in defiance. Jenna stepped alongside Lila, her presence a supportive anchor. This isn't just about us. It's about everyone who has suffered in silence. We have a right to unite. Lila could see the doubt in the eyes of some, but others, those hungry for change, started to find their voices. One by one, people began to speak up, sharing snippets of their experiences, their anger spilling forth like a floodgate released. Officer Lane shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his partners. For a brief moment, Lila thought they might back down, but instead, he took another step toward her. You think this is just a game? You're putting everyone at risk by standing here. Fury flared within Lila. No, officer, the risk is yours. We're taking a stand for what's right. We're done being afraid. The crowd erupted behind her, a wave of energy pulsing through the room. Voices joined together, echoing in a powerful chorus of resolve. They were no longer isolated, they were a community, fierce and united. But even as hope surged, a voice in the back of her mind warned her. What if they retaliate? What if this only makes things worse? Uncertainty clawed at her thoughts, but she pushed it down. She wouldn't betray the trust her comrades placed in her. The officers exchanged glances, clearly unsettled by the shift in momentum. You think your words will protect you? Lane scoffed, but there was something less certain in his demeanor now. Words can be powerful, Lila shot back, her voice shaking but resolute. And together, our truth is stronger than your threat. As the tension hung thick in the air, Lila could feel eyes boring into her, fear, passion, hope all mingling in a mix that tingled her skin. Would they stand by her or falter under pressure? Suddenly, her phone buzzed, an alert flashing across the screen. Distracted, she glanced down. It was Sarah again, her message clear and direct, I'm coming. I want to help. The realization hit Lila like a bolt of lightning. Her sister didn't need to be dragged into the turmoil, she wanted to be there, ready to fight. Lila's chest tightened. It felt like a lifeline thrown to her in the chaos. But would she arrive in time? Before she could contemplate further, Officer Lane's voice boomed again. Step away from the podium, or face grave consequences. Lila's heart raced, but determination flooded her veins. She faced him, unyielding. We won't back down. Not now, not ever. The crowd erupted in agreement, voices rising like a wave crashing against a solid rock. Lila's heartbeat matched the rhythm, striding forward, the sense of power coursing through her. They were ready to fight, but as the tension reached a boiling point, she knew there was more at stake. How could they navigate this moment without escalating the situation? And would Sarah arrive in time to join them in this pivotal stand? These thoughts circled in Lila's mind. The break was now, and the next chapter would either see their strength discovered or their voices smothered. Would they stand strong, together? Lila stood firm, her conviction blazing in the face of overwhelming pressure. The murmurs from the crowd swelled like a rising tide, their energy tangible. Each face reflected a tapestry of fear and hope. Her gut tightened with anticipation. She scanned the sea of supportive eyes and made a silent plea. Please, don't let this be in vain. Officer Lane, still hovering close, sneered. You think passion can shield you from the law? You're about to find out just how wrong you are. His words slashed through the unity in the air. But Lila refused to cower. We may not have badges or guns, but we have each other and the truth on our side. At that moment, the door to the hall creaked open. A few heads turned, whispers weaving through the crowd. Lila's heart skipped. Was it Sarah? Would her sister come and add her voice to this critical moment? Time seemed to stretch as silence enveloped the room, and then, she saw her. Sarah stood framed in the doorway, the cool morning light spilling around her, giving her an almost ethereal glow. But as she stepped further in, the urgency of the situation hit hard. Sarah wore a determined frown, whatever fears she held buried behind a mask of resolve. "I'm here." Sarah shouted over the murmurs, her voice cutting through the tension. "What can I do?" A wave of relief washed over Lila. "Just stand with us." It was a simple request, but it filled Lila with new energy. Sarah moved to her side, a steadfast guardian against the looming threat. The officer's discomfort seemed to intensify at the sight of fresh faces energizing the room. They were no longer just bystanders, they were actively challenging the status quo. Seeing Sarah's determination reignited a fire in the crowd. More people stood taller, their eyes locking in solidarity. Jenna shot out a loud cheer, which transformed into a chorus of voices, echoing Lila's earlier sentiment. The room vibrated with their joined declaration of strength. Officer Lane leaned into his radio, signaling something. A new wave of anxiety rippled through Lila. Would reinforcements arrive? Tension thickened the air. A deeper part of her wondered if they could withstand even greater force. With a newfound bravado, she shouted, "If they come for us, we will not simply disappear. We'll stand together." Every person in that room felt the weight of each syllable. They were not there to crumble under pressure, they were there to rise. "What a joke!" Lane countered, but his voice wavered, betraying his irritation. He was losing control. Behind Lila, more supporters began to arrive. Each new presence tightened the web of community around her. With every face she recognized, her courage swelled. This was becoming something bigger than herself. It was a movement against the silence that had cloistered so many. In the thickening atmosphere, she caught a glimpse of her mother, eyes glistening with tears of pride, standing in support. The sight anchored Lila, filling her with warmth. "We can make our voices heard," she whispered, almost to herself. But she knew this wasn't just her fight anymore. Suddenly, fear replaced with excitement. The stakes were incredibly high. The conversation wasn't focused solely on what the backlash could look like, but rather, how powerful they would be in their fight. Lila's resolve became a blaring indestructible drum, echoing through the hall. Officer Lane stepped back, uncertainty creasing his brow. "This isn't over," he warned. "You'll regret this." Lila matched his glare. "We already know what regret feels like. We will not be afraid any longer." The moment hung in the air, poised delicately between potential defeat and the birth of true transformation. Lila's heart thundered in her chest, knowing they stood on the cusp of a pivotal moment. Would they seize this opportunity, or would this stand become a mere footnote in their fight for justice? As the officers shifted uneasily, Lila felt the weight of change surging just beneath the surface, but as the tension crackled like electricity, the question loomed larger than ever: could they endure whatever came next? Lila stood at the center of the courtroom, her heart pounding as she faced the gathered crowd, a fusion of familiar and newfound supporters. The atmosphere vibrated with tension, the air tinged with both trepidation and hope. After weeks of fighting tirelessly, this was the moment that would define everything. "Listen!" Lila called out, raising her hands for silence. The room quieted, a hush settling like contented anticipation. "We're here because we believe in a better future, a future where our stories matter." She scanned their faces, locking eyes with Ava in the front row. Her daughter's bright eyes radiated trust, fortifying Lila's spirit. "But it's also about more than just us," she continued. "It's about the countless voices silenced by fear, the ones who've lost their power to speak. We owe it to them to fight for what's right." A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the audience. "Together!" Someone shouted from the back, igniting a surge of agreement. "Together!" Echoed the crowd, a powerful wave rising to the surface, smashing against the walls of oppression. Officer Lane shifted uneasily at the front, glancing at the other officers, whose expressions showed cracks in their confidence. "We will not be intimidated," Lila declared, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "The truth must prevail." Suddenly, a fanfare from outside broke into the courtroom. Lila turned her head as a flood of supporters burst through the door, holding signs emblazoned with slogans of justice and unity. The dynamic shifted. They were no longer just a group, they were a movement, gathering strength from each other. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and resounding with energy that vibrated through the old wooden beams. Lila felt a surge of exhilaration course through her. They had come together in this moment, and the hope that had once felt distant was now palpable. Today is the dawning of a new path for Willow Creek. Lila shouted, her heart racing. As the crowd rallied around her, she saw that everyone had a reason to stand and fight. Jenny's story, Ava's innocence, her own scars. "We are not just reclaiming our voices, we are rising as a community for what's long overdue." And that was it. The dam broke. One by one, stories flooded forth, raw, unfiltered, but filled with the promise of change. Each testimony built upon the last, weaving a tapestry of resilience that blanketed the room. Lila's heart glowed with the realization that they were changing, all of them, reclaiming something they once thought lost. Amidst the voices, Jenna stepped up to Lila's side, her presence a pillar of strength. "This isn't just about the cops," she yelled, breathing confidence into the crowd. "It's about every broken promise. Every person denied justice." The fire in her words wrapped around the room, igniting a fervor that reached out deeper than any stigma. "That's right," Lila exclaimed. "A better future demands we fight for everyone, not merely ourselves. We cannot let fear dictate our narrative." Officer Lane's gaze flickered, uncertainty sparking in his once certain demeanor. The weight of their words began to press on him like a physical force, a growing pressure he couldn't ignore. Behind him, murmurs swelled as onlookers wrestled with conflicting emotions. "The truth isn't a weapon for you to wield, it's our right," Lila asserted, resolutely moving forward. The energy surged again. They were powerful, unified in their demand for justice. Then, Lila turned her face to the officer again. "And if you think we're going to back down now, you're mistaken." Her voice rang clear, a heartbeat echoing among the crowd, and with that, she knew they had turned a corner. This would only be the beginning, not the end. They could no longer be pushed down, they would rise. As she gazed out at the faces around her friends, neighbors, Ava, even allies she hadn't known she felt a swell of tears prick her eyes. This was their moment. One man stepped forward, his features lined with age but his spirit unbroken. "I was afraid to speak up for too long," he said, voice heavy. "But seeing you all stand together, it's time." A roar erupted, and Lila saw their community standing firm, a legion against adversity. In that powerful moment, Lila found her own courage reaffirmed. They would confront the shadows head-on, with unity lighting their path. Together, every voice amplified, together, they would seek justice. As the crowd surged forward, Lila grasped Ava's hand tightly, pride swelling within her heart. They weren't just reclaiming the narrative, they were rewriting it. The future was bright, filled with possibility, and they were ready to embrace whatever would come next. "We won. Just be heard," Lila declared, triumph glowing in her tone. "We'll be unbreakable." And then, a collective cheer erupted that echoed through Willow Creek, shaking the very foundation of injustice. Lila knew, as they unified, this was just the beginning of their incredible journey, a testament to resilience, hope, and a future brighter than ever before. This was it. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Now, I need you to take action. You need to subscribe now to our channel. Do not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to help us fight the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. This is the moment to show your support. You know you want to.